not only political mapping of these two states, if those cases get protracted, they may implicate a constitutional crisis, so to speak, because tenure will end and then you may not get
there'll be a vacuum.
A vacuum, and nature abhors that kind of vacuum. You're not going to get, using the order of precedence, a chief judge of a state now, for example, to come and act as governor of a state and all that. But I think that for Bauchi, for example, you recall that in the course of Charlie's television coverage in verdict, we saw it live when the returning officer cancelled the result from Tafawa Balewa, which is generating a lot of problems. And the lady who was the officer of INEC from the ward, from the local government, that local government came and said, yes, we are collating. In the course of collation, there was intrusion and violence. And then they took the requisite form away, but we improvised. Since we had the numbers from the walls anyway, exactly, we were able to do that. But the return officer, you know, under the rule of the thumb, just cancelled it. And that generated a lot of controversy and all that. And INEC will say, okay, we'll do that. And then the matter ended up in court. I will urge that INEC should admit that it's managing a difficult situation in Bauchi and Adamawa because the results are very close. And so there is an impression that winners in those two states already are emerging, and that these supplementary elections may just be an attempt to rob the way. That impression is there. I'm not saying that that's true. Because so INEC has a duty, therefore, much than before, to perform very well and conduct the election in a way that is satisfactory to...
you know what comes to mind? And Ladi Ijoma and Nota, hold your breath, and let's for a moment travel, get ourselves into a dream world. God forbid if the situation that you described, which could lead potentially into a constitutional crisis in Bauchi and Adamawa State, they can possibly drag this case to the Supreme Court. Is it possible?
It's a possibility. Every case that is initiated in the High Court can travel up the ladder through the gamut of the judiciary to the apex court.
And the timeline could be about 3 months or more.
But I can assure you that the judiciary would not want a situation like that to occur, so that the judiciary will be blamed at the end of the day. I think that the judiciary will work extra hard to ensure that in record time, judgments are delivered to avert that kind of looming constitutional crisis. I think that the judiciary, you know, is not just an arbiter between two, you know, quarreling parties, two parties who are in dispute. The judiciary is also an arm of government, and it knows that it has responsibility as a stabilizer of the polity, as a promoter of the rule of law, and as an institution that ensures that there is predictability and certainty in the affairs of the state. So the judiciary will rise to the occasion.
So I just raised a speedy hearing of some of these cases.
There will be expedited hearings of such cases, and I can guarantee you that things will be done on record time before May 29.
Well, there was something that we were discussing, my colleagues and I, and is this case, which I want to drag you in. You know, it's a supplementary election. So it has caused trouble. It's causing another a legal battle. That's why I said it's a tussle. Now, I know that at some point we've discussed this matter of this election, this man and that man. And what has happened today? What can you infer in the process of this 2019 election?
Well, the judgment that has just been delivered may resonate in the ultimate adjudication that may follow some of these supplementary elections that we're having. You know, politicians don't want to lose easily, so eventually they will go to court. So, and then this kind of judgment may resonate. However, it is good to note that this judgment is a split decision. And very instructively, the chairman of that panel, meaning that in the conferences they were having to discuss the judgment, because judges do engage in conferences. If you have a panel, before you then settle for who will write the leading judgment on the basis of who is in the majority and who is the minority. The chairman of that panel, in dissenting opinion, would not agree with the majority.
The two other judges.
You know, and everything centered on Section 140 of Section 2 of the Electoral Act. You know, the interpretation thereof. It says that once you agree that there is non-compliance under Section 138 of the Electoral Act, which is one of the grounds for nullifying an election, or that there are discrepancies or malpractices, once they are proven, that you may not be able, as a mathematician, to be adding and subtracting and all that. Now, what you can do may just be to rule that there should be supplementary elections in those places, because you cannot be picking and choosing. So it's too early in the day for us to know how the matter ultimately will result. But for Senator Adeleke, I think that it's a congratulations to him.
We should see him dance more this time around, because I mean, that kind of victory might get you dancing, even if you don't have the talent. If you're a too left-legged person, you might still want to.
And we're not talking about somebody who's not talented. Yeah, he's very talented.
But he's very talented in dancing. We might see him dancing in the coming days. Let's quickly drag Bjorn Rajola into this one. You and I have discussed this issue also. Give us a sense of the figures that were cancelled at a time here, and some of the lessons that this has also taught you in 2019 election, because the contention between these judges, the dissenting judge and the two other the judges in the majority, very instructive, like Mr. Ogunye said. Contention between these judges, the dissenting judge and the two other the judges.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. You know, at the time that the election was determined on the 23rd of September 2018, it was determined that there were 7 polling units where election was cancelled. We had in Oshogbo, Ife North, Orolu, Ife South. 1 polling unit in Oshogbo, 1 in Ife North, 3 in Orolu, 2 in Ife South. The total number of registered voters who were told at the time affected were 3,498, while the total number of PVCs that were collected before that time was 2,594. You know, they went into the, rerun, which held a few days later on the 27th of September. And at that time, a total of 1,540 votes were cast, with 1,160 in favor of the APC and 325 in favor of the PDP. And, you know, eventually when that was added to what was obtained initially at the first run, as you know, there was just a margin of 353 that eventually gave the APC the leading margin. And then, of course, the APC candidate was returned. But when you look at basically what came out today basically was that the supplementary election was illegal. Basically was one of the issues that came out today. And one of the reports we got was that it was said that the returning officer had no power to cancel election. And so the thing is that when election is conducted at the polling unit, and then the collation is done at the ward. So ordinarily, a returning officer at the state level will have no business with cancellation of something that took place at the polling unit, because these issues must have been addressed before getting to the state collation officer. So the concern here going forward, and we have made this recommendation, is that as there is collation for the results of an election, there should also be, of course, there is collation for the cancellation as well, because cancellation is becoming very important. Now, there is a form called EC40G, which is used to record the cancellations. So what we are saying is that each of the political parties should also be provided a copy of EC40G, which is the result, the sheet that is used to record the cancellation. The essence of this is so that it will be very easy for the political parties to keep a track on the cancellations. So, for example, if a situation occurs that by the time you get to state collation, some cancellations are being announced that, oh, so place, this was the cancellation, so place, that was the cancellation. And then the party agents can say that at the time we had our party agent at those polling units, and there was no cancellation. In fact, this is the result from that location. This is the EC40G from that location. There was no cancellation, or our cancellation figures do not match yours. So it can increase accountability and transparency. I think this is important because politicians are beginning to take advantage of the issues of cancellation. And apart from that, if you look at the number of supplementary elections we are having now, 6, of course, this is also because of the dwindling margin between the candidates. So so those are some of the things. But ultimately, more has to be done to ensure that these cancellations are reduced.
All right. Let's close this segment of the program, and I'll allow Mr. Ogunye to give us a final word in this side of the divide, and his hashtag Operation End Supplementary Election. What is ringing in my head right now is that if I and you were in an election and I want to make sure that it's a supplementary election, I just go to your stronghold and make sure that I destroy a lot of ballots and make sure that there are a lot of cancelled votes. How then do we stop this kind of senseless cancellation, which leads us into spending more money and more time in elections? Mr. Ogunye.
There is something that you're not even saying. Elections are supposed to be contemporaneous, so that the outcome of the election in one part will not determine the outcome in the other part. In Kano, for example, there is a report that the governor of the state, who is embattled, had been on project binge, so to speak, in the wake of the announcement that we're going to have a supplementary election, to cut the voters in those places where we are going to have supplementary election. And you have provision in the Electoral Act that forbid disclosure of results, or how you vote in an election to another person in order to influence the outcome of or the pattern of voting in order. So election is supposed to be contemporaneous. That's why the time for it is fixed, so that whatever happens in one part will not be able to affect the other. But now that principle has been trumped by this kind of elongated election and the supplementary elections. So the way to tackle this, therefore, is to be faithful to the process. If you are going to have an election and we are told that there's a show of force, people have been mobilized, 100,000 policemen, military has been dispatched, all this, and so on and so forth. So why then do we have the incident of overvoting? Why do you have that? Why do you have the incident of snatching of ballot boxes and so on and so forth? If you disallow those incidents, or you don't allow them to happen, you then have the incidents of supplementary election.
We are going into the supplementary election. Since you used one word, Trump, and you knew what that means in the United States election and the aftermath of it, it's a very good point to rest my case. Thank you so much, Biodun Ajijola. Mr. Ogunye, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Yes, very insightful opinion that you've given on some of these issues. We'll close this part of the conversation. But guys, keep your eyes on this state, and that is what we get our attention. And all throughout tomorrow, we'll be on the ground in live, giving you live reports in all of this state. But I'll pass it on to my colleagues, Ladi, Ijoma, and the birthday boy, Nota Igbe.
All right, indeed. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sheil. We'll take a break. We'll take a break at this point, and then we'll come back right after that.